It's been a season of turmoil, of chaos for the Utah Jazz, but all of a sudden in the playoffs, it's calm sailing. Luka Doncic, he's in great spirits, but he's not on the court. And so the Jazz, with a sloppy performance that never necessitated them getting out of like second or third gear, just easily dispatched with the Luka Doncic-less Mavericks in Game 1. And that means it's time to welcome our friend, beat reporter for the Salt Lake City Tribune, Andy Larsen, the great Andy Larsen, the historic Andy Larsen. Andy, how are you? How are things in Jazzland, where I can only assume that things are more tranquil than they have been all season?
Yeah, we talked to Bojan Bogdanović today and asked him, how the trust is within his teammates. And he started talking about the egos of everyone in the group. So that's, a really good sign that everyone after Game 1 is feeling really great and everything is awesome.
I love that. What did he say about the egos? I can't. This is.
Let me pull up the exact quote. He was asked if the Game 4 win proved that they have developed more trust in the fourth quarter. And he says, it's about both trust and ego. We've got to put our ego to the side and trust each other, especially in these moments in the playoffs. We're here because we're a good team. We have quality. We really have a great group of guys who aren't looking for individual stats, especially like Rudy Gobert, having just one shot yesterday and being the best player on the floor. It's amazing. I don't know any other player who can do that.
It's beautiful. I have chills right now.
Bojan has to be my favorite Croatian of all time. Just for the record.
My favorite Bojan thing is that the Jazz accidentally uploaded a YouTube video calling him the creation Bojan Bogdanović. Now a group of fans have just been calling him the creation. And it's like the best nickname going for him besides, I guess, Bogey, but that's boring,
Here's a question for you, sir. Why can't Nickeil Walker-Alexander get on the floor? I mean, if everyone hates each other, why not just put the guy who doesn't know anyone?
Everyone is strong.
He does work super hard, but the big thing was in New Orleans, he had the worst true shooting percentage in the league. That's actually a true stat. And I do think that Quin cares about efficiency and not having Nickeil miss some shots. So I like Nickeil a lot, especially in the draft. But he can't take that many bad shots and kind of be in a good team rotation. He should, theoretically play over guys like Juancho Hernan-Gomez and Daniel House and, but even Trent Forrest. But
I got it. Daniel House deserves a lot of minutes for that little stun he pulled in the bubble for all the slutty boys. All the slutty boys back in the city. We appreciated that.
I agree. I love Daniel House. He has added a lot of character to this team, I'll tell you that much.
And he's not afraid to shoot the ball either. Andy, a lot of questions about the Jazz. A lot of criticism from many corners. It's almost gone too far, to the point where we just kind of discount. The Jazz are a solid team. How much do you think that kind of the criticism about can Mitchell and Gobert, how long can the friction between them go? Is this team fatally flawed? How much of that criticism is warranted? And has it gone to the level of we just have forgotten that this is a very, very, very good team with a player in Gobert who alone is able to elevate a team into, the elite levels of NBA defense?
Yeah, I think to some degree, probably. I think essentially, the Jazz, definitely, you're right, have a good team and a lot of good players. Donovan Mitchell, Bojan, Rudy Gobert, Bojan Bogdanović, Mike Conley, Yeah. I think you even look at the depth, it's pretty reasonable. And then I think the biggest issue is, they're kind of pretty clearly a step below the league's elite, both last year and this year. As much as they were good in the regular season last year, they were not that kind of caliber of playoff team. And then, I think you kind of look forward and realize that, they've got a really aging supporting cast, right? Mike Conley, Bogdanović, Rudy Gay, all these guys, they traded away Joe Ingles. All these guys were in their 30s, mid-30s. And so it's how do you build a real contender around Donovan and Rudy, kind of fringe all-NBA stars and definite all-stars, but kind of fringe all-NBA guys. Realistically, you probably need really talented role players around those guys. And the Jazz have just kind of run out of assets to get those guys in order to put guys around them. You know, they won't have free agency cap space for the foreseeable future. Utah's not going to be a free agency destination anyway. And then like they've traded all their draft picks until, you know, they can't trade their next one until 2026. So it's like, it's just kind of the math becomes difficult too. And, you know, I think they could be a really good team. And hey, you know, there's kind of a Portland route for them to making a Western Conference Finals and really kind of contending. But it's just tough because, you know, we haven't seen maybe Donovan and Rudy kind of take that leap that like a Ja Morant did, right? So anyway, I think there's kind of a lot of stuff going on that maybe even overrides the personality conflicts and the drama that we hear so much about.
You think they're going to stay together? Like, someone's got to go. And I think Donovan's the face of the team. You think they're going to stay together?
So they're like the three big faces of the team is Donovan, Rudy, and Quin, right? Quin Snyder. And I don't think all three of them go. And I think the big question is it 1, 2, or 3 change this offseason? You know, there's so much conversation about Quin Snyder's contract and whether or not he wants to remain in Utah or whether or not he wants to go elsewhere. When I talked to him about it on the record a couple of weeks ago, he didn't really deny those rumors. He said it was inappropriate to talk about other coaching positions, but he didn't actually deny that, right? So I thought that was a little bit interesting, you know. And then I do think that there's, you know, the Donovan and Rudy are certainly not best friends, as Quinn said in that 19-minute rant. They occasionally sit at the same table sometimes.
I love that. I love that so much. Hey, they sit together at lunch sometimes. Okay.
When there's no other
so
seats.
That's so great.
I truly don't know if it's 1, 2, or 3 of those guys. Like, what's tough is that if you trade Donovan or Rudy, you're probably getting worse, right? Like,
right.
I think like theoretically, like a Donovan for Damian Lillard kind of thing could be fun if you want to go crazy with it, but that's probably doesn't make sense. You're trading Donovan to the Knicks for a package of picks and young players or whatever it is, right? Or you're trading Rudy Gobert to the Hawks or the Mavs or whatever for a package of, you know, good role players and youth. But it doesn't make you better. And so it's hard to figure out, like, how do you kind of recalibrate or return the Jazz to being a real championship contender in the next, like, 5 years if you trade either one of those guys. It does just kind of make sense to rebuild a little bit. But that being said, the Jazz have the All-Star game next year. Owner Ryan Smith cares so much about making Utah look like a cool place and kind of hosting a good party there, quite frankly, that I think he'll want to have a good team next year to some degree. So there's like just a lot of factors going on in this decision of how many of, you know, again, 1, 2, or 3 of those guys that you move on from.
With new ownership, the people who are running the team always want their people there. On the other hand, Quin Snyder is an elite coach. Like, Quin Snyder is very, very good. There have been rumors linking him to the Lakers, as there have been for Nick Nurse. How I don't know if relieved is the right word, but there must have been like a level of schadenfreude, right, when the Lakers just like bungled the Frank Vogel firing in such public like fashion. Could you take us through some of the frictions with Quinn? Because I think maybe from the outside in, for people who aren't like paying attention to the Jazz on a daily, right? They might think, well, hold on, Quin Snyder's a great coach. Why would he go?
Yeah, I mean, I honestly don't think that would be Quin Snyder. I don't think it would be the Jazz firing Quin Snyder. I think it would be Quin Snyder moving on the other direction.
Right.
And, you know, by the Mark Stein report says that they've tried to offer him an extension to continue, and he hasn't agreed to it yet, right? So I think that's kind of where that's coming from. And what Quinn cares about, I think, is I think you kind of look at his assistant coaching history for one, and he had 5 different assistant coaching jobs in 6 years just because he was kind of trying to move around and learn as much as he could from some of the brilliant minds of the game. Like, what Quinn loves is like the X's and O's, intellectual, like chess move curiosity of basketball more than anything else. This team isn't like really about that. Like, he's solved the puzzle a little bit. He made the number 1 offense in the league, and it hasn't been enough, right? Like, what is the biggest problem now is that, like, his stars don't get along, and it's a lot of kind of infighting and that kind of stuff. And then I think he's also kind of lost some organizational control here when Ryan Smith hired Danny Ainge to be the CEO and even the alternate governor in the Board of Governors meetings. So all of a sudden he feels a little bit uneasy of like what the franchise is going to look like moving forward, who's calling the shots. And, you know, I think he's kind of open to other possibilities out there as like, hey, you know, what makes more sense for me in my career moving forward.
When you talked to Quinn, was he wearing that Jodeci vest? What's up with the vest?
He's wearing those vests all the time, and he only started doing it this year, so I truly have no idea.
Is it weights in there? Is it inflatable?
I think it's like one of those puffy jackets, but only vest form. But I don't know why he wears it so much.
He looks like he just came out of a bank vault, and he's carrying like duffel bags full of diamonds and
Deutschmarks.
Deutschmarks, and he's about to escape like through an air vent and then hijack a subway train and escape.
He looks like Leon S. Kennedy in Resident Evil 4.
Quin's got some of the craziest style in the league. Like, I guess I'll say I don't hate it. Like, he's wearing Vans every game on the sidelines. He's worn some like Jazz kind of orange, the red, orange, yellow Vans kind of colors. He's got like a inordinate number of wristbands or like bracelets on at any given time. Like one time we asked him like, Quin, why are you wearing 8 wristbands? And he like clammed up like all of them mean something to him in some way, but we don't know what. Like he's a very, very private person, which by the way is like one of the reasons why I don't think like the Lakers makes a ton of sense for him, because he'd be coaching the leakiest organization and like obviously the highest profile coaching job there is. But anyway, Quin is remarkable. Like I actually like respect the hell out of him. I love the guy, but he's certainly a unique human being.
Takeline is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy, the best and easiest way to play fantasy sports through Underdog's slick mobile app and easy-to-use website. You can draft your favorite NBA players in minutes and compete for cash prizes every single night of the season. Just head to UnderdogFantasy.com or download their app from the App Store / Google Play Store, and Underdog will double your first deposit up to $100. Pinky to the corner of my mouth like Dr. Evil, a current reference in pop culture, with the promo code TAKELINE. So what are you waiting for, folks? Are you waiting for another current pop culture reference? Sign up with the code TAKELINE, get your deposit match, and draft your NBA Dream Team today. Back to the game for a second. No Luka Doncic, no Tim Hardaway Jr. It's, the Mavericks creativity is going to come down to Spencer Dinwiddie, and that's not going to be enough. What level of concern do the Jazz have about this series? Assuming that Luka doesn't play for most of it. Certainly, I would expect that the Mavs absolutely have to get game 2. Like, they have to have it for this to be any kind of series.
I think if Luka does come back and if he is able to be healthy, then, obviously so much of it changes and he can really kind of attack the parts of the Jazz's defense that are really weak. But, I think they're at this point not that concerned. I think they feel like they can defend the Mavs as they did in game 1 in future games without Luka. In the end, that Spencer Dinwiddie and Jalen Brunson are not that much of a threat. And then you kind of look at the Mavs bench, quite frankly, and it's just non-existent, right? So you've got Maxi Kleber, who was a good shooter at the beginning of the year, has shot 18% from 3 since the All-Star break. You've got Josh Green, second-year player, also can't shoot. And then you've got Davis Bertans, right? Who is
Laser,
is a bum. Let me take this for you. A bum.
So
rec league all-star.
And that was their 8-man rotation in game 1. Now, I don't know if you played Trey Burke or Boban or Sterling Brown, but they just don't have a lot of answers. And so I think you just look at the depth and the talent the Jazz have without Luka on the floor, and the Mavs don't have a lot of a chance.
You know what my favorite little bit from the run up to the playoffs was when Luka had the calf strain and it was unclear what was going to happen, and every Mavs comment was, "Oh well, he's in great spirits." Okay, but how is the calf? But he's in wonderful spirits, though. Don't worry about that. And he'll play. We think he'll play in incredible. His spirits are so high, and Mavs fans were on this conspiracy theory level where they were like, "Well, no, listen. Why would they let the Jazz know that Luka is healthy?" As if the Jazz were just, Luka's not going to play, guys. We're not going to game plan for him. Let's save time here, and let's just not prepare for Luka at all. As if they would just be like, if Luka showed up, they'd just be like, oh my God, what? What are we going to do? That's been one of my favorite. That's not really a thing that you need to answer, but that was just one of my little favorite things that was happening around the league in the last a couple of weeks.
Well, and as like a beat writer, you're trying to figure out like, yeah, is this guy going to play? And so you read quotes from like Spencer Dinwiddie being like, I'm very optimistic Luka's going to play in game 1. It's like, why did you say that? He didn't even practice. You weren't in the same room. Anyway, but and then clearly he's not close, right? Like,
not even.
You watch the videos that he's not running.
Tim McMahon showed a video of him from the training facility, and he's on a exercise bike going about as slow as you can possibly go on an exercise bike. Like, it's like not gonna happen, folks.
I don't know, as long as the Jordans keep coming out. I'm fine.
So Rudy dominated this game like without scoring, and I think much like the criticism of the Jazz, do you feel like I've never seen as disrespected a legitimately elite player ever as Rudy Gobert. I think like Rudy is clearly a great player, an unbelievable defender. He's like a defense in a box. Like you just unpack him and you have rim protection. You have everything you need for like a top 10 defense in the league. And yet nobody seems to fuck with him like at all. Like his co-star doesn't like him. Players around the league are often making not necessarily snide, but indirectly critical comments of Gobert. What is the deal with him?
The funny thing is, like, everyone who works at the Jazz loves him. Like, he's the guy that, like, when the pandemic happened, he paid arena workers to, that make sure that they could feed their families for the next month, like, and then, like, again, you talk to their teammates, and he's like, Rudy Gay, for example, was like, Rudy Gobert must be important. He's making $40 million a year. It's like, oh, okay, jeez, guys, like, why are you throwing these shots?
Sheesh.
Anyway, I truly don't know. I think some of it is like the European thing. I think some of it is like he doesn't play the game of, he is very like honest in press conferences, which means that honestly he ends up taking shots at his teammates a bit after games. I think some of it is that like he is a super duper awkward player, right? Like terrific defensively. Is he like elite? I think he's an elite athlete, but like just very awkward, right, about how he goes about his business. And then like there's the fact that NBA players worship at the church of points. Like that is what is cool to NBA players is points. And Rudy's not a skilled offensive player, like all the work that they put in and jump shots and layup finishing and everything else, that's not Rudy's game. Rudy's figured out this very unique way of impacting the game and things that they never practice, right? Lobs, screens, killing it at pick and roll defense. And, it's not that sexy, I think, in the end. And I think kind of the respect level goes down as a result.
I blame George Bush. Yeah, man. Once they started calling them freedom fries, look, this goes back. This goes way back.
Did Tony Parker get this kind of hate?
A little bit. Steven Jackson hates Tony Parker.
He did get it a little bit. What can I ask? What happened? Rudy Gay, that was, man, the way that signing was talked about, like, oh, this is we're going to unlock it right here. This is his skill set, what he can do. This is exactly what the Jazz need. And then it just never arrived, never appeared in any kind of form. What happened?
I think, expectations were too high, right? Like, if you talk to San Antonio people, Rudy Gay was not like an amazing player last year. And then, he got old and had foot surgery in the offseason. So I think there is some injury comeback there. I think he is moving less well than last year. I think given that he doesn't fit a lot of what the Jazz want from that spot, which is kind of keeping the ball moving, allowing kind of the rest of the offense to work. Rudy Gay is kind of a ball in hand guy. And so like he's been felt kind of awkward all year long of like, hey, I can't get to my kind of spots on the floor in terms of, he's used to the mid-range jumper. He can knock down threes, sure, but it's not like his preferred game. And then he's kind of a defensive liability with the way that he's moving at age 35. And it's just like, Juancho Hernan-Gomez might legitimately be a better fit, and that's why we saw him in game 1. So I agreed. Like, I think it's at the point where he's now an overpay, and the Jazz might have to like use a pick to get rid of the contract. He's getting DNP CDs in the playoffs, and it has been just like a big overcommitment and a little bit of underperformance, I think, for sure.
Finally, Andy, I'm going to ask you two things. One, your predictions for who is in the finals. And then two, let's say me and Jamel we drive into Salt Lake. It's a beautiful day and, beautiful Saturday morning. We want to get some brunch. What are the spots? Where do we find Andy Larsen tucking into a delicious brunch on a wonderful Salt Lake City weekend morning? Let's start with the first question. Who's in the finals?
I'm calling a Suns-Bucks rematch. And I know that the game ended up being close between the Bulls and the Bucks, but there are times where I watch Giannis and I'm like, how does this guy not win every NBA Finals for the next 8 years, right? Like, even just in the first quarter, like, has that incredible Euro step and then hits a three on the next possession or throws it to himself off the backboard for dunks, just like stuff we don't see. And then the Suns are obviously awesome.
And that was also like classic Game 1 Bucks. Worst game of the playoffs. Like, that's what that's going to be.
Miss every three. So I'm betting on those two teams. As for brunch, my spot in Salt Lake City is called Hopkins. It's Hopkins Brewing.
I wasn't even sure you could drink beers out there. That's what's up.
Listen, we have, and I'll have you know this,
got beers?
6th ranked craft brewery scene in America.
Okay.
6th.
Now, last time I was in Salt Lake, it's been a minute, but the last time I was there and we went out to drinks, there was like this interesting system where you would pay to get into the place, or sometimes you wouldn't, but they'd give you a ticket, and the ticket was like membership to...
When was the last time you were in Salt Lake?
It was like 10 years ago. It was like membership to the bar and so you were a member of this like club for the night, and that got you around some sort of zoning that allowed you to drink.
So that was absolutely a thing. Now I'm looking it up. Like, I think that ended in, like, seriously, 2009 that ended. So you haven't been in Utah at least 13 years.
I'm coming back, baby.
And, now we have normal bars. The weirdest bar rule at this point is, like, you can't get doubles. And the on-draft beer, for whatever reason, has to be 5% or below. You can get anything in a can, and it can be whatever. But if it's on draft, it has to be 5%.
Oh, because drafts are too delicious. That makes sense.
Yep. I mean, that's where they get the kids, right? You see the draft kids. And you're like...
Kids don't know shit about draft beers.
They don't know about it. He is Andy Larsen. You can find him at the Salt Lake City Tribune and at Hopkins Brewery on weekends, tucking into that brunch for the top 10 rated craft beer scene in America, Salt Lake City, Utah.
6th.
Well,
hey, that's top 10.
That's top 10, baby. Andy, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me again, guys.